There are over 600 people on California death row. During a bitter divorce and to prevent the woman from helping federal authorities investigating his international gold trading firm, millionaire businessman Fayed arranged the contract killing of his wife, whose throat was slit. Marcus Fletcher, 13 years on death row. Fletcher and an accomplice killed a liquor store clerk during a robbery. Armando Macias, 13 years on death row. Macias, along with Alberto Martinez and Anthony Navarro, were hired by a woman to abduct and kill her brother so she could take over the family business. A fourth accomplice in the killing, a juvenile at the time, was sentenced as an adult to life without parole. Jason Richardson, 13 years on death row. Richardson killed the night manager of a Home Depot during a robbery. Ricardo Villa, 13 years on death row. Decade-old DNA evidence tied Villa to the essay and murder of an 87-year-old deaf and mute woman who was stabbed to death in her apartment at a senior citizens complex. Michael Barbar, 12 years on death row. Barbar strangled his wife to death and fatally beat his 6-year-old daughter after learning he was not the girl's biological father. Letice Brown, 12 years on death row. Brown was a serial rapist who killed a 16-year-old girl, essaying and suffocating her, and then setting her body on fire. His victims included 5 other women. Sherhan Brown, 12 years on death row. After breaking into their home, Brown essayed a woman and slashed her throat and stabbed her mother-in-law to death. Pedro Espinoza, 12 years on death row. The day after being released from jail in a gun-related incident, Espinoza, an undocumented immigrant, killed a high school athlete after mistaking his red backpack as a sign he belonged to a rival street gang. Eusebio Fierros, 12 years on death row. With the aid of a 17-year-old girl, Fierros abducted and beat an 85-year-old neighbor and trapped the man in the trunk of his car. His partner, Juan Ramon Coronado, then shot the victim in the face. The man was also condemned. Joanne Graham, 12 years on death row. Graham pulled up to a car on Highway 91 and began firing his rifle, killing 2 men. Earl Green, 12 years on death row. While on parole, Green shot and killed a Riverside police officer after a traffic stop and foot chase. David Mills, 12 years on death row. Mills, providing security to a house where drugs were being sold, killed 3 people in 2005 in a dispute over a gun. He pleaded no contest to involuntary manslaughter for killing a 4th person in 1997. Ryan Moore, 12 years on death row. Moore and associate Charles Ray Smith, using AK-47s, killed 3 people, including a 10-year-old boy, on a South LA street in a shooting that became known as the 49th Street Massacre. The victims were mistaken for gang rivals. Gabriel Ronquillo, 12 years on death row. In gang-related killings 5 years apart, Ronquillo killed 2 people, one a rival gang member, and one the brother of a man whose death had been ordered by the Mexican mafia. Marco Topete, 12 years on death row. On parole, Topete led officers on a chase when they responded to a report of a man drinking while driving. Then he fired an assault rifle from the side of a house, killing a Yolo County Sheriff's deputy. Manling Williams, 12 years on death row. Williams stabbed her husband to death with a sword and smothered their 2 sons, ages 7 and 3, with a pillow in their bunk beds. Jeffrey Aguilar, 11 years on death row. Aguilar killed a businessman leaving a bank and robbed him of $100,000. Ronald Brim, 11 years on death row. Brim fatally shot 2 men and hurt 3 bystanders at a Compton metro station following a gang-related dispute. Nathan Burris, 11 years on death row. Burris killed his former girlfriend, a Caltrans toll booth worker, and a transit bus driver after he suspected the 2 had developed a romantic relationship. Osman Canales, 11 years on death row. Canales kidnapped a woman, drove her to the bank to empty her account, and then returned with her to her business, where he killed her and her business partner by slitting their throats. Daniel Cervantes, 11 years on death row. Carlos Contreras, 11 years on death row. Cervantes and Carlos Contreras kidnapped an Indio man, robbed him, bound his hands with electrical cable, and then shot him in the head, dumping the body and using his credit card to buy gas. Contreras had previously robbed and shot a man and kidnapped a woman in 2 other carjacking cases. Richard Hirschfield, 11 years on death row. Hirschfield killed 2 Davis College students and dumped their bodies. He was convicted 33 years later based on new DNA evidence. Emrys John, 11 years on death row. John and 2 other men were condemned for killing a former Marine and his wife. With a 4th accomplice, they forced the man to watch as each essayed his wife. Wayman Livingston, 11 years on death row. Livingston essayed and murdered a Sacramento woman and essayed 4 other women. Jesse Manzo, 11 years on death row. Manzo shot a black man, targeting him because of his race and remarks against the Hispanic gang to which Manzo belonged. Desi Marentes, 11 years on death row. Marentes, a member of a street gang, shot 10 times at a man standing at a bus stop, targeting him because he was black. Tyrone Miller, 11 years on death row. Miller and 2 other men were condemned for killing a former Marine and his wife. With a 4th accomplice, they forced the man to watch as each essayed his wife. Joseph Nazo, 11 years on death row. Nazo was convicted of killing 6 women over the course of 2 decades after a probation officer discovered a diary describing the deaths of 10 women. 4 of the women described in that diary remain unidentified. Christian Perez, 11 years on death row. Los Angeles jail inmates Perez and Heriberto Rodriguez beat and stomped another inmate to death as more than 35 other inmates watched. John Perez, 11 years on death row. Rudy Ruiz, 11 years on death row. Perez and Rudy Ruiz opened fire into a crowded pizza parlor in 2009, killing 3 and wounding 7 others. Charles Smith, 11 years on death row. Smith and associate Ryan T. Moore, using AK-47s, killed 3 people, including a 10-year-old boy, on a South LA street in a shooting that became known as the 49th Street Massacre. The victims were mistaken for gang rivals. Anthony Wade, 11 years on death row. Wade essayed, tortured, and fatally stabbed an 84-year-old widow after breaking into her Anaheim home. Francisco Beltran, 10 years on death row. During a robbery with gang members, Beltran shot a man in the head who spoke disrespectfully to him. Leonardo Cisneros, 10 years on death row. During a gang-related series of robberies, Cisneros fatally shot a Subway sandwich shop worker and the man he encountered in a parking lot. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye-bye.